Welcome to the, sorry, are we? Okay, thank you, and welcome to all councillors and member of the public to this latest meeting of the North Northants Executive. And I'd like to give a very warm welcome to those who are viewing online. Members are reminded to keep your microphones muted unless invited to speak. So, item 1, are there any apologies for absences?
Just the one, Chair. Anne-Marie Dodds has provided her apologies. We've got Joe Hutchinson sitting in for her.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members, do you have any declarations of interest? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. I have a personal and predetermined interest in item 11.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, prejudicial.
Thank you, members. Appreciate that. Item.
It's from members.
It's from executive members only, I believe. Adele, is that right? Yep. So no declaration of interest from the member over there. So item 3, agenda items, notification to request and address the meeting. So we have on item 6, Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Buckingham. Item 7, Councillor Lee, Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Lynn Buckingham. And item 12, we have Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Buckingham. And item 13, we have Councillor Lee and Councillor Buckingham. Item 15, we have Councillor Anne Lee and Councillor Lynn Buckingham. And item 16, Councillor Maxwell has withdrawn on that, so that's fine. So we move on to agenda item 4, which is not there, so we're going to go straight on to item 5, which is the performance. Okay.
It's not on here.
Yeah, okay, so can we... is there any comments in respect of accuracy to the minutes that were put forward? No? Okay, can I have a seconder and a proposer? Thank you, proposer. And Councillor Buckingham will be seconded, and I will have those signed. Can we have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 5, performance indicator reports 22-23 as of P1, and I'd like to invite Councillor Lloyd Bundy to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Each month, a set of key performance indicators are published. This report covers the first month of the new financial year. Following the agreed changes to performance reporting arrangements at the March Executive Committee, the KPI set has been revised for the 22-23 financial year. By streamlining this report, members are able to concentrate upon those areas that are not performing as well as expected. Indicators that do not have significant movement or are stationary are not included in the report as often. Some are reported on a quarterly basis, and all KPIs are available to the management. The appendix containing human resources workforce data KPIs will only be included at the end of each quarter. Period 1 performance report shows a mixed picture of council performance. Of the KPIs with a target, 32% are performing on or above target, 13% are within tolerance of target, and 36% are performing below target. 19% are missing data. Northampton's Children's Trust performance indicators are among those that we are still waiting for. Of the 58 performance indicators reported this month, for KPIs where we can determine a direction of travel performance improved in 17 indicators and deteriorated in 17 other indicators. I'm sure colleagues will want to comment upon their performance indicators in the areas that they lead on. Revenues and benefits collection rates have seen a good start to the year, both achieved higher than their monthly target in April and higher than April last year. Performance for environmental information regulation requests completed within 20 working days, freedom of information request responses and individual rights request responses all have shown marked improvement. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation at paragraph 3.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. As I'm looking for members around the room, I know Councillor Brackenbury, you've indicated to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. The KPIs for the planning service are on page 46 of the paper pack, and all of them are showing a good improvement in the position. And I'd just like to say I think that reflects credit on a quite stretched team, and so it's very good to see these figures going in the right direction. It is also, regardless of which direction these figures go in, it is valuable to have this snapshot on a regular basis, just to keep an eye on where things are in fact going. So it's very good, and yeah, I just welcome the outturn, and I look forward to seeing what's going on next quarter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to point at a couple of indicators in my area. The first being very positive, the progress that's been made on the deprivation of liberty safeguard cases. And I know that this is through some really good and hard work from the team, and bringing this into a much, much better position than it had previously been. So I think that's worth highlighting. And in terms of items AFL 07 and 08, they're currently showing red. I think it's really important to realise this is very early in the year, and there are an awful lot of different things that can affect the long-term support needs, residential nursing care, keeping people out of hospital, and so on. And I think that's one just to watch, and I expect it will improve as the year goes by. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Any other comments from members? Okay, well, that's brilliant. So I don't know if you want to just wrap up on that, Councillor Bunday, and move the report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We are working to refine the indicators even further, not changing the actual KPI sets, but the way they're presented. And you will notice, hopefully, improvements over the coming months. But with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation at paragraph 3. Fantastic.
Thank you very much. So that's been proposed. Can I look for a seconder, please? Councillor Harrison, thank you very much. So they've been moved and seconded, and the recommendations are set out on page 40 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands in favour? Fantastic. So we now move on to item 6, which is the Corporate Parenting Board update. And I'd like to invite Councillor Dorothy Maxwell to address the meeting. You have a maximum of 3 minutes, Councillor Maxwell.
Good morning. I'm pleased that the Ofsted have decided that in future we should be separated from West in future, dealing with children services. When North was given an inadequate rating, it clearly showed there was a need to meet the needs of children by having social workers communicating and taking children into account. Clearly, this was not the account. This was not picked up, and 3 social workers at the scrutiny explained this. Having North and West divided means that this will happen in future, but we will see in July what Ofsted say about this development. Children are what's important, and they must always be given their view about their care. Social workers must be more vigilant when working with children in foster care. How many children do we have who are placed outside NNC? Who goes to see these children? How much does it cost NNC? I hope in future this separation will mean that West cannot tell North what to do, or influence the needs of children who have no homes or parents to rely on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Buckingham.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Although the announcement from Councillor Baker gave very little for planning for a transition for a divided service, it does give us the opportunity to have a better insight into the lives and experiences of our looked after community. We will be able to focus our attention on the children that live in our areas and target intervention where needed. But the Corporate Parenting Board for the Northamptonshire also needs to ensure it has a strong reporting mechanism that allows all councillors to understand their role and their responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckingham. So I now invite Councillor Scott Edwards to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll just respond to the two speakers. So, Councillor Maxwell, I think you're getting a little bit confused with the Ofsted and the Corporate Parenting Board. So, the Ofsted are returning in July, but that's for the Children's Trust, so that's not part of North, and it wasn't the North that's got the inadequate, it was the Children's Trust fostering area that got inadequate, so it's a combined, but you're absolutely right that children are the most important in this, and we will do everything possible for that. And Councillor Buckingham, yeah, absolutely. A strong reporting mechanism is vital, which is why we've already structured health and various other organisations, including the police, to come on board with the Corporate Parenting Board to work for and with the children that need it in the North. So this report is to update the executive in the arrangements for Northants Corporate Parenting Board. Previously, we had a joint board with the West, who decided in April this year that they were going to go their own way, which now gives the North the opportunity to set their own board up. Corporate Parenting Board is a statutory body and allows members and officers to look at ways of supporting our children in care. The new board will be chaired by myself as executive member for children. And in the past, we have looked at various issues, including health reports, foster-friendly councils, care leavers, to name a few. And it's a good way to get all bodies on board to get the best possible support to our looked after children. The terms of reference are in Appendix A, and the members of the board will consist of the lead member, representatives from NNC's Children's Services, elected members, and just to advise that there will be 7 elected members on that across the political spectrum, health services, education, the police, the voluntary sector, and most importantly, our care leavers. The board will meet bi-monthly and will report to the executive with an annual report. As members, we are all corporate parents, and this allows us to have our say and look after our children that so desperately need our support and care. I would ask the executive to support the recommendations on page 56.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Just looking to members for some comments. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, actually, I think this is a real opportunity for us in the North to sort of take control of our own services here. I think it's a desire that we've had for a long time to be sort of the masters of our own destiny here, and allowing more access to our members to get involved, I think can only be a positive thing. So I fully support this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. So I echo some of those feelings. I think, you know, our own Corporate Parenting Board, focusing on our own children in the north of the county, is something which is absolutely crucial to giving the best outcomes for these individuals. And I think we really need to embrace this opportunity and do the absolute best. As you already articulate, we are corporate parents, and something that none of us take lightly. And if we can you know, give our children the best outcome, be it young, be it care leavers, and so on. It's a positive for the area. Okay, so the report you have recommended, Councillor Edwards. Would someone like to second it? Councillor Hell, thank you very much. So that's been proposed and seconded. The recommendations are set out on page 156 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 7, the NNC Public Space Protection Order for Dog Control. And I'd like to invite Councillor Anne Lee to address the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. This is a well-written, well-researched, comprehensive report, and from Graham Kane, very pleased that he's staying with us. Now, excluding dogs from school fields and sports fields makes sense, absolutely. But dogs do need to walk off the lead somewhere. So your own report suggests that most fouling instances are on footpaths. I would not include, for example, Meadow Road Park in Kettering because the children's area is fenced off. And within Kettering, there are not that many areas where you can walk dogs off the lead for people without a car. And yeah, our enforcement is very poor. 6 notices issued. Then it does say, you see, it would be interesting to know something more about the figures on page 68, 69. Several hundreds of complaints received, responded to with appropriate action. What is this appropriate action? I wonder what it is. Have people been taken to court for not having their dog under control? I hope so, because that is a serious offence and lives can be at risk, absolutely. So where can we see these reports? Now, what are the implications of this policy? Signs will be funded from the environmental health budget, but environmental health or environmental protection also covers air quality and other areas. So I hope that it won't go at the expense of those areas that are very important. The report says under 717 that there are no resources to add to the enforcement of this. So retain some places where dogs can walk, because dogs need exercising. Dogs are people too, right? Dogs and people need exercising. It feels strange that we are spending time talking about dogs, actually, when we've got burning issues like the Kettering Leisure Village, and that's not on the agenda today. So that is a big issue to me and to a lot of other people. But I understand the PSPO in Kettering is due to expire, so I understand that this needed to come up on the agenda at some point this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lee. The next speaker was due to be Councillor Ross Armour. He hasn't arrived today, so we go to Councillor Dorothy Maxwell.
Good morning. This dog report wouldn't happen if every responsible dog owner picked up their poo from their dogs. Children playing in parks need protecting from this. At present, there is no protection. However, in Rushden in Hall Park, they have actually fenced off an area for dogs to walk without leads. Maybe all parks should do this. This would then help sort of get people to pick up the poo and put it in the right place. Outside my house is poo heaven. The owners come down and just let them poo and carry on. What is the cost of dog poo wardens per year? And given my personal experience of being nibbled or bitten by a dog, I feel that all dogs should be on a lead when they're walking down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Buckingham.
Good morning again. When public space protection orders came in 2014, they were perceived as a very useful tool against antisocial behaviour. And in the main, they've been used quite well. However, enforcement and telling me what they've achieved during the time of their of the orders is certainly a place where it's sadly lacking. And as my colleague Councillor Lee said, enforcement is quite difficult. And although the PSPOs that have been here in Corby have been around alcohol levels in certain areas, there's been a lot of problems with dog-on-dog attacks, people not putting their own dogs on leads. And I understand that this is just going out to consultation, and it will be interesting to see what will come back. But it is that enforcement. How do you change people's behaviours? So I hope a lot of that will be put into the consultation. Here in Corby, we have a lot of open woodland throughout the town. Some of that might be difficult to enforce, but what's the use of having a PSPO if you're not going to enforce it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckingham. I now invite Councillor Binley to introduce the report.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. I'll try and cover off all of those bits before I go into the report. Just picking up on some of the comments from Councillor Lee. So, of course, this isn't proposing to ban all dogs not on leads. Of course, there are areas where there is a proposed ban on dogs in certain areas. Of course, you mentioned Meadow Park. I do believe Meadow Park was actually one of the areas which I will talk about as part of the pre-consultation that took place with the town and parish councils. And I do believe that one was suggested actually by Kettering Town Council. But of course, the whole point of this is permission to consult. And of course, if you made comment about you don't think there should be a ban in Meadow Park, I would strongly advise you to take part in the consultation, of course, as long as it all gets approved today. Enforcement. So, of course, there's a bit of a theme there because, again, Councillor Lee, you mentioned that, as did Councillor Buckingham. So I'll try and cover off both of your points raised there. Of course, enforcement is an important thing, but enforcement and slapping people with fixed penalty notices is not the be-all and end-all of a public spaces protection order. We are not here to start punishing members of the public in a draconian manner. The ability with a PSPO is to allow officers and to afford them the power to be able to engage with individuals and have those conversations that otherwise they would not be able to have without a PSPO. And, of course, by doing so, we are able to speak to people and educate people about their behaviours and change them moving forward, which is actually, in many respects, far more effective than actually issuing a fixed penalty notice, because it doesn't always have the required impact that actually having that conversation with individuals has. So hence why you've seen the figures that are rightly published in the report. And therefore, we do want people to have the enjoyment of our spaces. We are a nation in the most part of animal lovers, and especially dogs. So we do want people to still be able to enjoy public spaces with their dogs, but that's the whole point of having this consultation process. I also note the comments around the use of budget from our environmental budget with regards to the notices, and of course that there's comments made about air pollution, etc., being important. Yes, absolutely, it is important, but also I know also from talking to my own constituents that dog mess is an important issue, as are dogs off the leads, etc. I've had many people speak to me about dogs being off the leads and going in and either going for their dog or going for their children and knocking them over, etc. So I think it is just an equally as important issue as anything else that we have out there, and absolutely right that we bring this paper forward as officers have diligently done to move forward with this. I think that Chair covers off all of the points, but again, I'm more than happy to pick up anything with any members outside of the meeting if they wish to discuss this. But I was going to say it later, but I strongly encourage members to take part in the consultation as long as this goes forward. So thank you, Chair. I'll just now go over to actually presenting the paper. So this report is to seek approval from the Executive to commence with the first stage of public consultation on a proposed public spaces protection order for dog controls across Northamptonshire public spaces. There are currently orders in place across 3 of the old Legacy Council areas of Kettering, Wellingborough and East Northants. The Kettering order was actually due to end in August, but it's been extended until November to allow this process to be completed. So all 3 orders will now expire in November 2023. At this time, there are no orders for dog control in Corby. Corby Borough Council did in the past have enforcement in place for dog fouling under previous legislation, but in 2011 decided not to do anything further when new legislation came in. In Corby, there has never been an enforcement ability to request dogs are kept on leads or exclude them from certain areas. So the PSPO for dog control to be across the whole unit, the whole authority area, will be also to align the conditions across the entire area. This in itself would make enforcement much simpler and also easier for residents to understand the restrictions when crossing from one area to the other. Details of the restrictions are proposed in the details listed in Schedule 1 and 2, which are Appendix A in the packs. But they include dog exclusion from all fenced children's play areas, authority-wide controls on dog fouling, dogs on lead orders in designated places, and the ability for officers to require dogs to be placed on leads when requested. The order in Kettering currently states that a person cannot be in control of more than 6 dogs. However, DEFRA are currently reviewing this and they may issue national requirements. So it has been proposed to remove this from the new PSPO moving forward. Enforcement of the proposed PSPOs will be carried out by existing resources, as has already been highlighted. The teams are listed in 7.1.1 of the packs, but it also does include PCSOs and police officers. The council does keep the revenue from any fines, but as I've said, this PSPO is aimed at changing behaviours so that everyone can enjoy our open spaces. We also have to remember the importance of having dogs on leads in certain areas, given the inherent dangers that can be created by certain dogs out of control. And the signage, again, something that's already been raised, for the additional areas would be required, and the other signs will need to be replaced, and these costs will be met out of the environmental health budget. If approved, the first stage of the consultation will be carried out over a 6-week period, and recommendations will then be based on consultation feedback, and a revised order will be drafted off the back of that, and a further 4-week consultation period will then be carried out for that revised order. And this process requires public engagement, statutory consultees to be involved, and to seek views basically from as many people as possible, including other relevant bodies as well. 7.1.2 details the various enforcement actions that have been taken since April 2021 in the 3 areas that currently have PSPOs for dog control. Initial views, as I said earlier, from town and parish councils were sought during a pre-consultation. The list of those town and parish councils that have engaged with us thus far, that provided us with responses, are listed at 4.12. The proposals have been discussed with members of the Sustainable Communities and Prosperous Communities EAPs. Both EAPs supported the consultation process for the proposed PSPOs. Just to highlight that Appendix A is the proposed draft of the PSPO, including the relevant areas, and Appendix B is a list of areas within Corby as part of the scoping exercise. So just to be clear, That's not a list of these are the areas that are all proposed. It's a scoping exercise to get that public opinion. So on that note, Chair, I'd like to move the recommendations made out in sections 3.1 for the reasons that are set out in 3.2 of the packs.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Binley. And look, there's probably tens of thousands of dog owners across Northamptonshire who take their responsibility as owners, you know, as they should do. But I think this is just a tool in the armoury of holding to account those few that don't in Northamptonshire, and gives us options. And you know, it's already been highlighted by speakers and yourself, the risks and the issues that are caused by unruly dogs and their owners that don't keep them under control. But having a dog is an absolute pleasure, and I have a dog myself, and it gives me hours of pleasure to watch him walk and do what he does, and you know. But he's okay. Can we delete that bit? But yes, he has a lot of fun when he's out swimming and walking, I think. But on that note, I'm going to go to another local dog owner that's not too far from me, Councillor Pentland.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm supportive of this going out to consultation. As we heard from the variety of views from the speakers we had today, there is a very broad range of views on this, and that is why it is important to go out to consultation on this. As has been highlighted, it is important from a public safety point of view. Having a dog comes with a lot of responsibility, and that is important for both the dog's welfare and other dogs' welfare, but also other people who are out and about, and also the environment that we take our dogs out into. So having this in place is important from that perspective. As Councillor Binley highlighted, this has been to the Sustainable Communities EAP a couple of weeks ago. There was quite an in-depth discussion around that, and members picking up on different parts of it. And it will be interesting to see the consultation responses that come back from this to make sure that we have the very best document moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pentland. Councillor Howell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I also welcome this paper. Obviously, it's another way that we can engage with the community. Just picking up on something that Councillor Maxwell said, I know that many towns and parishes have actually invested in specific dog parks, dogs off lead parks, which is always extremely useful. But also we mustn't forget that we do have protected spaces out there. We have special spaces. We have cemeteries, you know, where our loved ones are placed. And the last thing we want to do is end up walking around these type of places and having to deal with dog fouling and things like that. When that is really sacred ground as far as I'm concerned. And of course, children's play areas. The last thing we want to do is put children in any risk at all. We don't want to have them being scared of dogs or anything like that. It's nice for them to be able to have somewhere that they can play, knowing that they are safe and that, you know, they're not going to get to any harm. And of course, I'm sure we're all aware of that dog fouling is actually quite toxic to children. So it gives them a space where that they can be safe. I think that having this consultation will bring out a lot of ideas, a lot of suggestions from people, and that's always really good that we do that. I mean, I don't have a dog. That's purely because I'm highly allergic to dogs. So I like dogs, but even from my perspective, having somewhere that I can go that I'm not going to end up getting poorly from, you know, there's two sides of the coin on this, and we have to respect everybody's wishes, views, and any sort of issues that may come out of that. So consultation is always good, but we have to consider every aspect of our community, and this engagement will be really, really useful, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howe. Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I like the other speakers, I welcome this report, and I welcome the consultation that's coming about it. And I'd like to thank Councillor Binley for his very comprehensive introduction to the report. I think one of the best points he made is, of course, this isn't a blunt instrument. This is, we are trying to educate the small minority of dog owners who don't take their responsibilities seriously, don't clear up after their pets, and give a lot of dog owners sometimes something of a bad name. So the approach to education is something I very much welcome. Okay, if it comes to it, yes, it provides, or if it's adopted, it will provide powers to issue fixed penalty notices and so forth. But we don't, as Councillor Binley observes, we don't really want to be going down that road unless we're presented with no real option. I agree with Councillor Howell that it's all a question of balance, isn't it? Like with so much of what we do on this council, everything is in balance. So we've got the rights of dog owners and the rights of the dogs themselves to sometimes be off the lead and run around and enjoy themselves. And you've got the other balance of what negative effects could be on children or people, and of course with dog fouling. So you do have to balance all these rights and requirements. I think the paper has set out a pretty good strategy, and I welcome the consultation and any responses which may add to the richness of this paper. So thank you, Councillor Binley. I think it's an excellent paper, and I'm very much supportive.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Binley, come back to you just briefly to wrap up and propose the report, and we'll look for a seconder.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I welcome all of the comments that have been made. I agree with all of them. I would also just like to take this opportunity to pay thanks to the officers who've worked tirelessly on this report. As we've said, they've been to 2 EAPs, they've taken on board that information and that feedback and amended the paper accordingly. They've also put up with a bombardment of questions and comments from myself, so I do thank them for that. So yes, Chair, as I said, I'm happy to move the proposal as a recommendation set out in 3.1 of the report.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I look for a seconder? Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much. So as Councillor Binley's already said, the recommendations are set out 3.1 of the report, which is on page 64 of your agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to item Agenda 8, adoption of the North Hampshire Council Contaminated Land Strategy and the Contaminated Land Cost Recovery and Hardship Policy. I'd like to invite Councillor Brackenbury to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an interesting paper. It's important. It combines existing strategies that were held by the former legacy authorities in Corby, Kettering, Wellingborough and East Northamptonshire. It is a statutory requirement that each local authority has a published strategy for how it would carry out inspections of its area to identify land that may be contaminated, not necessarily that is contaminated, but that may be contaminated, and also to have a strategy in place for what would happen if we in fact do identify contaminated land. It's probably best to quickly summarize that strategy. Here, if contaminated land is identified, the principle is that the polluter pays for the costs of remediation. But if the polluter cannot be identified, then it would be normal for the remediation to be responsibility for the landowner. If the landowner is not in a position to meet the costs of remediation, then it would fall for the local authority to meet those costs. But if we have an adopted strategy, it may be possible to get funding from DEFRA, central government, to meet the cost of remediation. So this paper is quite important. And it falls into 3 particular areas. One is the actual contaminated land strategy at Appendix A, and the cost recovery and hardship policy, which would be when the polluter / a landowner could not meet the cost of remediation, are also set out in Appendix B. The strategy has been consulted upon, and consultation responses have been considered and taken into consideration on the on the policy that or the strategy that we've put forward. It's also been to the EAP, and I welcome the comments that were made at that particular meeting as well. So, Chair, really it is combining existing strategies, and I refer colleagues to the recommendations at 3.1 that the Executive approves the proposed contaminated land strategy and the cost recovery and hardship policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. Any comments, members, on the report that's before you? Okay, brilliant. So I'd like to look for a mover for you, Councillor Brackenbury. Someone to
move.
Second.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Councillor Harrison, sorry. The recommendations are set out on page 92 of the agenda pack. So they'll be moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So we move on to item 9, Braybrook Neighbourhood Plan. Back to you, Councillor Brackenbury, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. There's, I think, going to be a bit of a theme with the next 3 papers, Chair, because they're all about neighbourhood plans. I'm pleased to introduce the recommendation to make the Braybrook Neighbourhood Plan. This is a community-led plan which has set out that community's wishes and its opinions in placemaking in the Braybrook area. I think it reflects enormous credit on everybody who's worked. These plans are not easy to put together. They take a great deal of hard work from sometimes a smallish parish or town council, and they really are important parts of the local development framework, which we all have to have. So just in general terms, Northamptonshire is something of an exemplar in getting adopted neighbourhood plans put in place. And that, of course, has been going on for some years, so it goes back to before Northamptonshire Council as well. But if I'm correct on my figures, I believe that Northamptonshire has currently made something like 23 neighbourhood plans covering much of the area. As is required, the neighbourhood plan was subjected to examination. The examiner considered that with some proposed modifications, that the plan was sound, and then the plan was submitted to referendum, and in this case, the residents of the parish voted 109 yes and 6 no, which is a 95% majority voting yes. So we have obviously consulted with the residents of Braybrook, and it's for the Executive to make this plan, and I very much recommend that we do so, while thanking the team and thanking the residents of Braybrook for coming forward with such a satisfactory outcome. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. Now, and I know Councillor Edwards wants to make some comments.
Thank you, and I know Braybrook very well, and actually the next one, Harrington, as well, very well. And I know they're very small communities, and so it's amazing that they have got together to do this, along with their respective parish councils, in getting this through. And you're absolutely right, Councillor Brackenbury, that a lot of community work has gone into this, and that really should be acknowledged, that a lot of voluntary time and effort has gone in to make their villages a better place. So I welcome this.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Just looking around the table, no. Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to echo what Councillor Edwards has said. Braybrook is obviously in my ward. The comments really apply to all 3 in terms of the hard work and effort. Braybrook has suffered over the years with difficult developments, shall we say. They have been extremely keen to try and create a much better scenario for themselves in terms of a parish plan. They worked really, really hard at doing that. The outgoing chairman, I just acknowledge his efforts, because he has really driven and spearheaded this work. And I want to acknowledge that, and I also want to stress how valuable these plans are for all of our communities, and that the more the merrier. There are a number still coming through the process. There is even one just being started in my area, so it's great to see that more and more parishes are kicking this work off, and great to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howells. I see there's no other comments. I'll come back to you, Councillor Brackenbury, to just sum up briefly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And I welcome those supportive comments, and I completely echo everything that's said. And this is people power in action. This is a bottom-up document. It is what the neighbourhood wants. It's got to be in conformity with national planning policy, etc., etc. But it is an opportunity for the neighbourhood to make their place a better place. So I very much welcome the comments and move the making of this plan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Can I look for someone to second the Braybrook plan? And thank you, Councillor Howells. Can I have a show of actually, the recommendations are on page 102 of your agenda packs and 132 if you're looking at the electronic one. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to item 10, which is the Harrington Neighbourhood Plan. And again, Councillor Brackenbury, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and it will be probably to the relief of members and members of the public that I won't possibly make such a lengthy report on this, because it's very similar and it is also very satisfactory. Here, again, I'm recommending to the Executive that we make the Harrington Neighbourhood Plan. It's gone through the same process. The neighbourhood has also had its referendum, and it is very pleasing to note that 38 residents voted yes, 7 voted no, so it's an 84% majority that voted in favour of the plan. And I recommend to the Executive that we make the Harrington Neighbourhood Plan, while again thanking everybody who's worked so hard on producing this document, both in terms of officers and in terms of the good residents of Harrington. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. I don't see any hands from executive members up, so I propose that you're moving the report.
So move.
Will someone do the honours to second the report? Councillor Howell, thank you very much. Recommendations are set out on page 112 of the physical agenda pack, 226 of your electronic pack. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. Jolly good. Right, so item 11. South West Kettering Headlands Community Neighbourhood Plan. And again, back to you, Councillor Brackenbury.
Well, thank you, Chair, and at the risk of sounding like a bit of a stuck record, it is, again, enormous credit reflected on the team and on the residents of South West Kettering, the Headlands area. Again, it's a neighbourhood plan. It's been subjected to examination, and it's been subjected to a referendum of local residents. And in this case, 348 residents voted yes, 33 residents voted no. So again, this has a 91% approval rate. And again, thanking everybody who's been involved, I move that the Executive makes the South West Kettering Headlands and Community Neighbourhood Plan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Just looking around the table, there's no comments from other members. So that has been moved by Councillor Brackenbury. Can someone second that report? Councillor Binley, thank you very much. The recommendations are on page 122 of the physical pack, 284 of the electric agenda pack. Have a show of hands in favour, please. Yep, thank you.
Illuminated. She's glowing. I do all the time.
Okay, so we now move on to item 12, primary education provision for the Glendale Park development, Wellingborough North. I'd like to invite Councillor Dorothy Maxwell to address the meeting.
Good morning. Looking at this report clearly shows the trend for new and purpose education provision. The issue, as I see it, is that we need to create new schools for the future. and have updated provision to meet the needs of the curriculum of whatever age the child is. We have schools which are outdated, not accessible for disabled students, and overcrowding provision for SEND children. Rowan Gate in the Hayway is an overcrowded provision from expansion, as it resits in having classrooms in other schools in the area. Equally, this school could become a specialist school, offering more maths, music and IT. If we do not expand into the future, we will end up in 5-10 years' time and we'll miss the chance to do this. Having classes of 30 children, years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, is not the way forward. Extending the provision of Rowan Gate is important. Children requiring extra help would be needed due to COVID. No one has a crystal ball as to what will happen in the future. We know that more specialist help is required. Children are falling behind with their core subjects. This will lead to a shortage in some areas of workforce in the future. Having the school built up to date with saving power and refurbishment is the way forward. We have schools which are 100 years old and are requiring maintenance to go on with it and the costs. It would be short-sighted not to develop and leave children not reaching their full potential in education, and at the same time helping SEND children have more room. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Buckingham.
Good morning again. So at the moment we have a school with no children to serve at present. There's been little investment in our school buildings for a number of years, but have you considered using this space to create a new SEND provision? We have a lack of spaces in North Northants. This could be an opportunity to remedy the shortfall quickly. And I agree with some of the points that Councillor Maxwell raised about class sizes, etc. Not always possible in the right location at the right place, but yes, please could provision be sought for special needs schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckinghamshire. I'd like to invite Councillor Edwards to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll just, so Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Buckingham, you both talk about SEND. It does state in the report, actually, so the Section 106, when it was first negotiated, is for a primary provision. You'll know from previous executives that we have increased our SEND provision. 4 brand new units have been, in fact, will be ready to go for September. You're absolutely right, that's not enough, and we are doing a lot more to do that. But unfortunately, Glenvale Park is for a primary school provision. It can't be utilised for a SEND provision at this time. So this report is to highlight the changing numbers of children that require primary education in the Wellingborough area. Glenvale Park, situated in Wellingborough, has a brand new school. Currently, there would be insufficient demand for the school places and would have a detrimental impact on primary schools close by. This has been clear by the annual strategic pupil place planning exercise, where it identifies that they would not be needed till at least 2025, although this could be even longer. Based on this position, work has been undertaken to access the options that are open to us and ensuring the local community has access to sufficient school places and that no schools are disadvantaged and that assets are used as effectively as possible. It is proposed to move an existing school onto the site to have the benefits of a brand new school. This cannot be done without consultation within the local community, who will need to be in support of this. An expression of interest would be required to clearly set out how and any move would support the school and those living in the Glenvale Park development. This then allows the other school to be used for another purpose, for example, a hospital school that we do not have currently in North Northants. The Department of Education's position has been clear, and they have provided clear advice that they would not expect the opening of a new school unless demand can be clearly evidenced. The school has been funded through Section 106 and is very nearly built. There are other options to mothball or repurpose, but both of these would disadvantage the school. If option 3 to relocate is approved, the Department of Education must give their formal agreement to proceed. This would then go out for expression of interest with a possible completion date of October 2023 to come back to this executive in November. The recommendations are on page 332.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. I would just like you just to explain just a little bit more to obviously some of the members of the public that might be viewing this meeting about a hospital school and the need for one of those in our areas, and just to explain a little bit more about what a hospital school actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. So a hospital school is for those children that cannot attend a mainstream school. They may need apparatus to help them with their day-to-day lives that can't currently be accessible within a mainstream school. So it is children that are currently under the NHS for various different reasons that need to go daily, weekly, monthly to hospital appointments, but it's allowed for them to allow their education.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. So some important things that have been said in that, and I think, you know, to do this is what we need to be looking at. Things like hospital schools are going to be important. We've got to think about all the children that are within our care and need education. I just wanted to pick up on one of the items that Councillor Buckingham had said, that we haven't invested in the schools in North Northamptonshire. Just in 22-23, we've invested 34 million in those schools. So just maybe thank you very much. Okay. Members, do we have any comments in relation to the paper that's just been brought forward by Councillor Edwards? Councillor Lorman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, part of Glenvale Park is in my ward, and the other part is in the other Councillor Lorman's ward. Glenvale Park has already got over 400 residents, and of course it's eventually determined to have 3,000 houses potentially. So I welcome this chance to have an innovative way of looking at this issue that we have with usage. Some of the local schools are in not fit for purpose and outdated buildings, and that would give them the opportunity. And the school has been designed with the opportunity to expand if need be in the future. I would be slightly concerned that one or two of the local schools may use it as a chance to expand, but I'm sure that's not the intention of the process. And of course, a number of the people already resident in the town do use the outlying villages as for their schooling, so may well not be the burden on the home to school transport that we're maybe thinking it is. So I do welcome this innovative, and the residents and certainly the developer will welcome having this facility on the development as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lorman. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. It's really important, isn't it, that we make sure that we use our facilities in the best possible way. And a mantra that we often say is I before E, we need infrastructure before expansion. This seems to be a case where we actually have got a school coming on board and there aren't yet enough pupils to fill it, but we do know that in the future there will be. So it's really important that whatever decisions we make, it allows for that expansion in the future so that we don't suddenly find that all our schools are full and there's nowhere for our children to go. So I think that the paper is proposing the best possible way forward here, so I support the paper.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Edwards, back to you. I don't know if you just wanted to quickly sum up and propose a report.
Just say thank you very much for that support. And Councillor Harrison is right. After 2 years, we have no idea whether there's going to be a baby boom or new people coming into the area. So we need to plan for that as well. So there is the opportunity there to expand to a 2-form entry to incorporate any increase in primary education needed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. So Councillor Edwards has proposed that paper. Can someone do this on us to second it? Councillor Orman. Thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 132 and 133 of the physical agenda pack and 332 and 333 of the electronic pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 13, and that's the Startwell Research Project. I'd like to invite Councillor Anne Lee to address the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing this report. I was going to say Anne-Marie, it's Joe who's here. I support, of course, the allocation of money, but that's not even in the recommendations. I support the recommendations in this report. The report lays bare two things. The impact of COVID on development in early years, that's something that was outside our control, and the impact of scaling down Sure Start years ago, and that was under political control, which means that problems with language development are not being picked up and addressed sufficiently. Local area partnerships have also identified this as a problem. Struggling parents who cannot get to Pen Green in Corby are struggling to access services. Problems are not picked up quickly enough. Early years support is crucial for our children. The results of the study, just an initial study performed by the University of Northampton, are concerning. Developmental delays, children not being toilet trained, increasing special educational needs. I understand that the Wellingborough settings are getting special support because the study highlighted that the pupils' development of communication and language was 6.2% behind the national average. However, please note that problems with communication and language were also flashed up in other areas, including during the visit and workshop in the context of levelling up, in the Avondale Grange area of Kettering, and the Ronald Tree Nursery in Kettering is also doing work with the University of Northampton. This is not being recognised or financially supported, although Avondale Grange is one of the left behind areas. Lastly, on page 380 at the end of the report, we see health visitors need to be more involved. Absolutely. Who's going to pick that up? Our key performance indicators show that parents are not being invited for their health checks for their children from the ages from birth to 2. We have an underspend on public health, and the reporting to councillors is behind the curve. The last Director of Public Health report to councillors is 2020 to 2022. Health and Wellbeing Board, last draft minutes online for the Health and Wellbeing Board are for November 22. No minutes or draft minutes for the March meeting. So this is a question to you. Who's going to take up this involvement of health visitors? And can we have more reporting on this to councillors, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Could I invite Councillor Buckingham to address the meeting now, please?
Thank you. The report has some rather stark points. The contents paint a picture that the attainment of development factors are not being met and at a surprising rate. Some of this could be attributed to the effects of lockdown, but that should not be used as a get-out-of-jail-free card. In fact, if the trajectory of outcomes were to continue on this downward trend, a generation would be starved of opportunities to thrive, and this council will have to shoulder the consequences. The budget dedicated to early years has been slashed to the bone, and we are already seeing the effects in the community. Our local MPs are all concerned. We need to utilise their voices in government to bring much needed funds back into our areas. Pen Green has been decimated, as have all our maintained nurseries. We cannot simply watch this continue. We should be lobbying government to send the resources we desperately need before it's too late. Family hubs are on the horizon, and they need to have a firm footing in our communities, not just here in Corby, but in East Northants, Kettering and Wellingborough, where the early years provision have disappeared. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. Just want to obviously again reiterate on record that this council has invested an extra £650,000 in our maintained nursery provision over the last year, and we're exceptionally proud of what all of our maintained nurseries do in Wellingborough, Kettering and Corby, and we will continue to lobby our MPs and government for any extra funds that may be available to us through trailblazing type startups and so on. So thank you for your comments. So I'd like to go to Councillor Edwards now to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the speakers. Reporting, absolutely. So I think there should be more reporting on this and statistical data. So we will bring in other reports back on this, so everybody can have a good examination and a good conversation about it. There are 3 other test and learn pilots that are happening to address the other areas as well. So those reports will be published shortly as well through the Family Hub programme. Councillor Buckingham, you did talk about funding, as the leader has said, actually about the maintained nursery, but the family hubs, that comes direct from central government. 75 local authorities were awarded that money, and actually this is where this research has come from as well. So we have had that money, but you are quite right, early years is vital. It's absolutely vital for the welfare of our children moving forward and for our families as well. And so we are doing everything possible to kind of increase that and get the best possible outcomes for this. And this is just the start of it, this research programme. So this project is linked to the Family Hub programme. It involved collecting evidence and data from early years settings in the Wellingborough area. From this, we have been able to build a good picture of children assessing early years provision, have been able to identify gaps in the area. During the process, questionnaires, visits and face-to-face discussions were held with setting leaders to gather the information required. And the long-term aim of this project is to pilot the Startwell research project in Wellingborough, which then can be replicated in other areas. The full report can be found in the pack and has been shared with the settings that participated. The top 4 areas that were identified as having a need were SEND, speech and language, safeguarding and communication. This work is designed to be a collaborative piece working with the University of Northampton and working with Dr. Tanya Richardson, who is a principal investigator and senior lecturer in early years. And the aim is to identify the factors in play and learning environments of early years settings and to see if they are associated with young children's speech and communication issues. The cost of the project is nearly £9,000 and will be funded through the Family Hub programme. The recommendations are on page 368 and would ask you to support this valuable project.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. I can see Councillor Harrison wishes to speak. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, to address a couple of points that were made by Councillor Lee. In terms of the Health and Wellbeing Board, the next meeting is a week on Tuesday, and publication of the papers for that meeting, I believe, is tomorrow. So the draft minutes of the previous meeting will be published tomorrow. So that's the usual format for the way meetings are run. So you will see those draft minutes tomorrow. In terms of the 0 to 19s health visiting, you'll recall that I brought a paper to the executive a few months ago. Our health visiting is currently delivered by NHFT. They have been having some problems. Most of those they put down to the difficulties of COVID and catching up and the increased number of safeguarding concerns that they have to deal with. But we are now looking at that contract over this next year to re-procure, hopefully next year, and we will be putting, a lot of stringent conditions in place to make sure that our children are getting their milestones properly checked, and they are, being looked after. And then just on the paper itself, I just want to say that I think this is a really good piece of work. We must base what we do on evidence. We need to know where the greatest needs are. And I think, again, I think it was Councillor Lee mentioned that not everybody can get to Pen Green here in Corby, and so that's why it's absolutely vital that we develop our children's services across the whole of Northamptonshire, and quite clearly Wellingborough has a great need. So I really welcome this. It's great to have the data to be able to base our decision making on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Just looking around the room, any other comments from members? No? Sorry, Councillor Binley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I too very much echo Councillor Harrison's comments. I really do welcome this report. I know that there are members present today from various different areas, but of course what we do have to remember is this is NNC, this is not a previous sovereign authority. And I think it's great that we are looking at other areas, but the whole point of this paper is, as Councillor Scott Edwards has stated, is the fact that this would then be looked, as long as it's a success, at being replicated across other areas as a model. So it is not just about putting it in another area. I know there have been comments made about levelling up, but of course as an authority we have been looking at levelling up. We only have to look at the fact Grange Primary received £5,000 of community grant funding only back in April for a community project. And I am aware of the comments made. Councillor Lee talks about pupils going to school and not being toilet trained. She's absolutely right. I had that conversation with a headmaster in her ward who made that comment to me, and how parents are, some parents are expecting their children to be toilet trained by the school. I'd be interested to know what's driving that. Maybe it's years of Labour government and people expecting the state to do everything for them. I don't know, quite possibly. But it is an area that definitely needs addressing. So I do really welcome this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Back to you, Councillor Edwards, just to sum up on the report and make a recommendation, and we can second that.
Just thank you for the support, and I know each and every one of you believes in early years and everything that we are doing to get our children for the best start in life possible. So thank you very much for the support.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Can I have someone to second that report, please? Well done, Councillor Harrison. And the recommendations are set out on page 146 of the physical agenda pack, 368 of the electronic pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So we now move on to item 14, Treasury Management Outrun Reports. And I would like to invite Councillor Bunday to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the Executive on the Council's Treasury management activities and performance for the financial year ended 31st of March 23, in accordance with SIPFA's Code of Practice on Treasury Management. The current economic climate continues to create a volatile market, with inflationary rate remaining high and the Bank of England continuing to increase interest rates in an effort to drive inflation down. As members are no doubt aware, the Bank of England interest rate has moved from 0.75% in March last year to 4.5% just 12 months later. Section 2 sets out a comprehensive picture of what is happening economically, both globally and nationally. And Section 3 sets out the local context of the Council's Treasury Management Strategy. Table 2 at paragraph 3.4 summarises Northamptonshire Council's Treasury Management. At the 31st of March 2023, the authority held £463.4 million of loans. This represents a decrease from the 31st of March 22 position of nearly £22.5 million. This is reflected in the table at paragraph 4.10. By law, this council has to operate a balanced budget. which basically means cash raised during the year will meet its cash expenditure. To achieve this, we have to ensure that our cash flow is adequately planned, with surplus monies being invested in low-risk counterparties. The authority holds significant invested funds representing income received in advance of expenditure, plus balances and reserves held. During the year, the authority's investment balances ranged from between £186.6 million and £314.6 million due to timing differences between income and expenditure. This is reflected in the table at paragraph 5.3. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much. Members, have we got any comments? Councillor Brackenbury.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to make the point that I think it's pleasing to see that the total borrowing fell in this last period, so that's good news. But also, I think the Treasury Management team deserve a pat on the back for the work that they've done to ensure that the loans that we have pay as low a rate of interest as possible, and that the investments that we make, the Treasury investment position at the top of page 164 at 5.3 shows a pretty strong income return, which is in fact slightly better than the return on the loans we've got. So it does, I think, shows that the Treasury Management team are doing a really good job with the council's finances, and we are doing as well as we can financially, because with £400 million we've got outstanding. These are large sums of money, and it's sometimes a little bit abstruse to get into all the detail, but I just thought that the reflection of those interest rates was very, very interesting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. Any other comments from members? Councillor Howell.
Well, I think I just really wanted to say, similar to what Councillor Brackenbury's just said, it's really important that we are making inroads in paying this debt down, and it's brilliant to see that we are making significant progress in that area. Authorities up and down the country, as we know, are struggling, and debt is a considerable factor. So to see this local authority within a very short space of its existence starting to make some serious progress is really good to see, and driving that forward, making that debt serviceable in an interest way, the better. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Okay, no, I've just got a comment to thank the finance team. It's the bedrock of a good authority. We all know what a bad authority looks like when they lose control of the finances. That's not happening here under our watch, and all credit needs to go to Janice Scotts, the 151 officer, and her team that keep everything on the straight and narrow and make sure that we have an authority which has a very long-term, stable financial future. Okay, so back to you, Councillor Bunday, just to sum up on some of those comments.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, most of our borrowing is on fixed terms, so the rates are fixed when we borrow, whereas our investment, because it's short-term investment, means that is reflected by the interest rates. So while the interest rates are high, then that is reflected in our returns. But I think we all know that the interest rates are going to come down, and when they come down, that means that income will fall as well. And with that, I'm happy to propose the recommendation of paragraph 3.
Thank you, Councillor Bunday. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much for that. So the recommendations are set out on page 154 of the physical agenda pack and 396 of the electronic agenda pack. So they've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands of favour, please? Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to item 15, which is the budget forecast outrun 22-23 as of period 12. I'd like to invite Councillor Anne Lee to address the meeting, please.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I've got 2 points, 2 major points. 545, there's an underspend on the climate emergency. It's said here that this will be carried forward, this underspend on the climate budget. I certainly hope so. I hope that that will be confirmed and that will happen because we haven't, because it's necessary. Right, second point, underspend under 530 on public health and well-being. It's thank goodness that that money is ring-fenced for public health because it needs to be spent. We need to have that action. It could be used, for example, for a feasibility study for the Kettering Leisure Village because it's not on the agenda here and that's happening on your watch before you pat yourself on the back about everything that's happening. It's something that you're not taking seriously enough. Just one meeting a week is not going to cut it. It needs discussions every day. You could either do nothing, which is what, well, you could review the contract and see if breaches have occurred.
What are you referring to at the moment? Are you talking to the report?
Yes, because this is about the money, about how our money is being managed at the moment with this authority.
Public health money is ring-fenced for public health issues and...
Yeah. Well, there's no money here, there's no emergency motion here, there's nothing here about something that is happening on your watch, about Kettering Leisure Village.
We are talking about the budget forecast, not Kettering Leisure Village.
Well, that is the problem, Chair. That's exactly the point that I'm making. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to invite Councillor Buckingham to address the meeting, please.
Good afternoon and thank you again. For me, this is a report of two halves. I can see the hard work that's being put in by members of staff of the Unitary Authority, stepping up into roles that are at the moment unfilled. And I'd like to send thanks to the members of staff for that. There's always going to be a lot of expansion and contraction with any budget. It's worrying me on the home to school transport, which has come out of reserves, which is for this year, but then that impact might be passed on to members of the community next year. I realise that this isn't a report for next year. On the issue of public health, because I've just recently been through myself a little bit of a hiccup, I'll call it. One of the things that's come out of that is that within this area and the health inequalities, there is a real problem with vitamin deficiency. So, for example, vitamin D deficiency, which could be an impact from COVID and not going out and things like that, which is having an impact on the health of everybody here. I would like to see some form of it's such a simple little pill to take, but that would have such a big impact on the health of our community. My impact of my accident wouldn't have been so bad if they hadn't identified that I too have a vitamin D deficiency. So it's something I would like to see going forward on any public health underspend, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckingham. If you're struggling with vitamin D, come stand over here. The sun's beaming through, and I feel that I'm brimming with it. I'm overdosing on it, but yeah, but thank you for your points raised. So, Councillor Bunday, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to say that the climate change fund will be carried forward and has been moved into reserves. As far as the home to school transport coming from reserves, we actually saw that after last year's budget, so we actually moved it into reserves so we could bring it out of reserves to fund it, and that's why it appears to be where it is. As far as your vitamin D, I will leave that to my portfolio holder, well, I say my portfolio holder, Councillor Harrison, to look at that. The purpose of this report is to set out the forecast revenue budget outturn position for 22-23 for the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account. It should be noted that this is still only forecast and still requires audit and sign-off. With the exception of Period 1, the Executive receives a monthly update and forecast against budget report. This not only means there shouldn't be any surprises at the year end, but also that any mitigating action can be taken in year to prevent any major overspends that would disproportionately have a detrimental effect on our reserves and ultimately call into question the viability of this council. Can I commend members and officers around this table for their in-year financial prudence and strong financial management, which has helped mitigate pressures from areas far beyond our control. There are a number of areas that could impact on the forecast outturn that are still being finalised. These include inter-authority charging arrangements with West Northants Council, following the local government reorganisation across Northamptonshire. The forecast outturn for the General Fund is an overspend of £965,000 against a net budget of £300.075 million. This is a favourable movement of £2.897 million from period 11, where an overspend of £3.862 million was reported. The detail of the movements against the budget are set out in the report and summarised in the table at paragraph 4.3. The forecast outturn for 22-23 amounts to Children's and Education, £8.254 million overspend, Adults, Communities and Wellbeing, £426,000 overspend, Place and Economy, £480,000 underspend, and Enabling and Support, £7.717 million underspend. Within Children's and Education Services had a net underspend of £944,000, and Commissioning and Partnerships, which includes the Children's Trust, had an overspend of some £9.198 million. In total, the Children's Trust has a forecast overspend of £21.387 million shared between West Northamptonshire and North Northamptonshire councils. The report also seeks executive approval to transfer monies to reserves, significantly transfers of £3.043 million to the Capital Reserve to cover MRP and £2.728 million to the Business Rates Reserve. The Council is responsible for the collection of local taxes, both council tax and business rates. At the end of March 2023, 96.8% of council tax had been collected, which is higher than March 2022, where the figure was 96.33. Business rates collection was 97.05% at the end of March 23 as opposed to 95.77 as at March 22. The contingency budget for 22-23 was £4.75 million, which was reported as fully utilised as at period 7. This did present a risk for the remaining 5 years of the year. The table at paragraph 5.3 outlines how the contingency budget was used. As previously reported, this council runs 2 separate neighbourhood accounts under the North Northants Housing Revenue Account. This reflects the 2 legacy authorities of Corby and Kettering. This will eventually merge into one HRA, as is the statutory requirement. The forecast position for Corby is an underspend of some £521,000 and an underspend for Kettering of £180,000 against a total approved budget of £36.27 million. This is summarised in tables at paragraph 6.2 and 6.7 of the report. Can I again remind members that, as I stated earlier, this is the draft outturn position and the financial position will be subject to external audit. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose recommendations of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. I'm just looking around the table for some comments. Councillor Pentland.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bunday has provided reassurance around the climate change funding and the fact that it be rolled over, and grateful to him for doing so. I thought it might just be helpful to provide a little bit of context around that. As it sets out in the report, what we firstly needed to do in order to start spending the money in the right ways was have our carbon management plan in place, which, as members know, we have got in place now. And as the report also sets out, there is spending against the Climate Change Fund happening on a number of projects that are coming forward as a result of this careful planning. So, for example, corporate properties energy and decarbonisation surveys, energy efficiency officers, etc. And a number more projects will be coming forward as we go on. So that will very quickly start to be spent, I suspect. But also just for the wider context, other directorates are managing their spend and contribution in terms of tackling it within their areas, which is also really important. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Penton. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. So to address some of the problems, some of the comments from Councillor Lee, who sadly is not in the room anymore, in terms of public health. So any public health underspend would go back into the Public Health Reserve and has to be used for the ring-fenced public health spend. It cannot be used for anything you feel like. Anybody who recalls the county council, when they misspent public health reserves money, it's a very serious issue and must not be even remotely considered here in North Northamptonshire. So that money will be used for public health. In terms of the issue raised around vitamin D, in terms of distributing of vitamin D tablets, that would be the responsibility of primary health. But I do take your point that there may be something that public health can do in terms of raising awareness of that issue. So I will talk to my team about that and see if that's something that's appropriate for public health to engage in. And finally, I would just like to, as I do as often as I can, adult social care is, of course, a demand-led service. And if you have a look at our end-of-year position forecast at the moment, on a budget of 107 million, we have come in £69,000 under budget. That is as close as being absolutely bang on. And that is because of the incredible work and professionalism of David Watts and all of his team who have managed to bring that in, forecast accurately and manage those services. And I think they deserve a huge amount of credit for that. So thank you, David, and all of your team.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. I think I've got Councillor Lorman. Councillor Edwards, did you? No, I thought I saw your hand, sorry. Councillor Lorman.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to pick up some of the comments on home to school transport and remind residents that they've got 4 days left in the consultation process that we're currently undertaking for that, and that will inform our officers as to recommendations on how to proceed, and there is a large degree of work going on to look at the provision, and obviously we will certainly want to fulfil all our statutory requirements, particularly with the SEND requirements, but we will be looking at the contracts and all the other facilities to make sure that we get as close as possible to within budget on that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lorman. Some good points made there. I'm looking around the table. There's no other comments to be made. Councillor Bunday, did you want to wrap up and again propose a recommendation? I'll find you a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. Just to repeat that good fiscal management and the fact that we report on a monthly basis, so we are fleet of foot and we can try to mitigate any problems, makes this council very, very strong. And I just thank colleagues around this table. All I do is report it. You guys are the guys who deliver it. So with that, I'd like to propose the recommendation of paragraph 3, sir.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Edwards. Thank you very much. So it has been moved and seconded. The recommendations are on page 170 and 171 of the physical agenda pack, 412 and 13 of the electronic pack. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to item 16, which is the Capital Outrun 22-23 provisional outrun as of period 12. Councillor Bunday, do you want to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out the provisional capital outturn position for 22-23 and subsequent proposed carry-forward requests due to the rephasing of scheme expenditure profiles. It also includes requests to approve schemes which, during the process of the closing of the year end, have been identified as capital expenditure and needs to be reclassified and included within the Council's capital programme. These can be found in Table 3 at paragraph 5.7. This report also details the latest revised capital budgets for the General Fund and Housing Revenue Account capital programme, including new schemes which have been approved since 1st of April 2022. The outturn for 22-23 in respect of the General Fund capital programme shows a revised capital budget position of some £109.3 million, including slippage and in-year approved programmes. The spend is £35.4 million, which represents slippage underspend of some £73.9 million against revised budget. A significant proportion of the budget was not spent in 22-23 as initially planned. The details of the position against each scheme is set out in Appendix A, and the reasons for the movement against budget vary and include delays due to discoveries on site, either during or in advance works, finalising agreements and resources available. As reported to the Executive in February, £43 million of the General Fund capital programme budget was reviewed and reprofiled into the 23-24 budget. Therefore, the proposed carry-forward request for 22-23 is £29.9 million out of the reported underspend of £73.9 million. Table 5 at paragraph 5.10 details the schemes that have been identified to transfer into the development pool where there are uncertainties over the timing or scope of delivery, and therefore further business case will be needed in the future to request approvals back into the capital programme if the scheme is to progress. The outturn for the HRA capital programme shows a revised budget for 22-23 of £28.3 million, including slippage from 21-22 of £14.3 million and approvals in year of some £610,000. The outturn is showing a spend of £9.6 million and represents an underspend of £18.7 million compared to the budget, which has been reviewed and reprofiled considering the latest position. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. Members, are there any comments in relation to this report? No? Okay, so we have a mover within Councillor Bunday. Can I look for a seconder, please? Councillor Binley, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 202 and 203 of the physical agenda pack and 444 and 445 of the electronic pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can we have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So I can confirm that I've received no request to consider any urgent items of business at this meeting. So we're going to now move into an exempt session, exclusion of the press and public. I can confirm that there is one item for consideration at this meeting, and I therefore propose to exclude the public and press from the meeting during consideration of the following items of business in accordance with Section 1A of the Local Government Act 1974, because exempt information may be disclosed, and that's item 17, surplus asset disposals. Please can I have someone to second that proposal? Councillor Edwards, can we have a show of hands in